Dear learners, welcome to live teleconferencing session. In this session, we will discuss about major components of sustainable development. This is the generic elective course of BA General and BA Public Administration Honors. Normally sustainable development, climate change, development, these are the words are continuously using again and again, and moreover it is gaining more importance also, and it's showing every day that some kind of new informations also providing that also. But if you see sustainable development in a public administration perspective, it came into operation when development administration failed to deliver as per the changing economic and social environment. Sustainable development would have never reached where it has now if development administration is not happened, and you can say that development administration is one of the facilitator of the sustainable development. The concept of sustainable development was introduced in the Brundtland report by the United Nations Environment Commission, chaired by the Brundtland, the Prime Minister of Norway. The concept was conceived, conceived with when the concept was developed, or you can say introduced, that time environment was a basic premise. Okay. Slowly what happened that they have developed the definition, that is sustainable development means development that meets the present needs without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. So we know this definition through the report, and we can say that it is a popularly known as the Brundtland report, and that it has a main two components. One is that the basic needs of humanity and the limits to development. So as I already mentioned that that sustainable development, the first initially when it was introduced, that they focused more and more upon the environment only. But in the later part, they decided that we have to look into that holistic perspective. In that first one, they said that first thing is that the basic needs of humanity, and second is the limits to development. So these are the that process of sustainable development. For the basic needs of humanity, for example, if you take food, clothing and jobs to be met, okay, this involves, and we have to paying more attention to the unmet of the world's poor, which should be given overriding priority. And then second component, if you come into that, limits to development. The limits to development is not absolute, okay, but are imposed by the present technology and social organization by impacts upon the environmental resources and biosphere ability to absorb the effect of human activities. And another thing we can say that due to technological development, that depletion of natural resources, and we are giving, that exploiting natural resources. So many things are happening and all. In 1992, what happened? The United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, they held in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. They have attracted the attention of more governments, international agencies, non-governmental organizations around the world, and the Agenda 21 also adopted at the conference, representing a global consensus and political commitment at the highest level of socio and economic development. So the sustainability term, it refers the development in and environment, keeping in view this component. Okay, we have to actually what they are saying, that we have to bridge the gap between development and environment. Like we need a development also, at the same time we have to protect the environment also. So we have to protect our balance, or we can say any word. So we should be bridging the gap between development and environment. So these basic things to these are the basic thing to frame that component. When it comes to sustainable development, there are three components are more important, or we can say three pillars, and it must be considered together. Okay, society, economy, environment. If you have a good society but if you doesn't have economy and environment, if you have a good economy and but if you doesn't have a good society and environment, but if you have an environment you doesn't have a society and economy, then what will happen? So it is not a that and generally another thing is that that these things that it will affect a universal level. Okay, so we can't divide like a nation state, like you can't boundary, you can't frame the boundary at all. So we have to be always see that together. The basic idea is that if you look at among the people, habitats and economic system, mostly we depend upon the environment and our existence only. Okay, the environment used to good food, soil, water, oxygen, and our population can't survive without these basics of life also. So the social well-being and economic well-being also feed each other. In then what happened that in the agenda 21, okay, it is the 900-page document, they have given 4 domains to the pillars of the sustainable development. In that one is called the socio and economic dimension. In the socio and economic dimensions, they have given a fighting poverty and promoting sustainable development planning and also. And they have given a conservation and management of resources and the means of implementation. So these are the basic things given in the agenda 21. Like for example, now if you come into the components of sustainable development, in that first one is that the social, that the social components of sustainable development. In the social components include the social in the sense it include the human as well as the, because humans are the most important to achieve the sustainability, and also it aims the building cultural socio-cultural stability, and it used to bring the reduce the or prevent the social ill bit of another time, and the common masses also frustrated due to the lack of job, satisfaction, and many things are there. So there is no absolute values in the unpredictability due to these are the things. When it comes to social component, there are few dimensions of social dimensions are there. Since they have introduced 3 pillars, that is the socio-economic and the environmental component, but the world has come in a long way. The United Nations formulated a 17 Sustainable Development Goals in 2015. It has a 169 target also. That 193 members has been supported also. And if you look into that United Nations Research Institute for Social Development, that is UNRISD, they have developed a social dimension of sustainable development. In that, first thing what they have given is the quality of life. Quality of life is that what do you mean by quality of life? A person, if you want to live a quality of life, first thing is that affordable housing, physical and mental medical support, education and training opportunity, employment opportunity, access to safety and security. So the quality of life directly represents the well-being of individual in a society. Development is considered as a freedom because of the right to the basic amenities of life leads to one freedom to another. Like for example, your freedom from the poverty, sickness and illiteracy. You should not have a confusion. Like for example, when it developed, what we used to say that we used to say we have a large huge building infrastructure development out there. So it is not a real development. You have to be that when it comes to quality of life, you have to have freedom from the poverty, sickness and illiteracy. And also development is it's a kind of integrated process. It's a substantive social, and you need a political and economic freedom also, and mostly if you see these 3 things are connected with each other. When it comes to quality of life, personal heterogeneities, that is differences. Different individuals have specifically different characteristics. Like for example, if you take age, gender, illness and disability, which makes them unique. Some problems may be addressed with the equity also. And if you look into the environmental diversity, the needs of individuals vary due to the environmental conditions that they are affected by cold weather, whether the hot weather or the rainfall or pollution or adverse environmental conditions. When it comes to social climate is like, for example, violence, crime, educational facilities, community relationship, and public facilities affect the local level of social capital, which influences the quality of life. Okay, you can say that if they have a crime, and if they doesn't have a proper educational facility, if they doesn't have a community relationship, you can say it is a kind of a social capital, which this also influences the quality of life. And it comes to another one is the relational aspect. Quality of life is influenced by the relationship prevalent in the community, which are based on the culture, customs, and norms, clothing, behavior, self-respect. These are the some indicators. So it used to divide, it used to determine the how a person lives in a community. And another thing is the income distribution. So income distribution within a family aspects the well-being or the freedom or the family member. So when you come into the quality of life, you need a personal heterogeneities and environmental diversity, social climate, and a relational aspect, and finally the income distribution. So these are the 5 aspects used to determine the quality of life and all. But when it comes to equity and diversity, sustainable development has, that it raises the level of indicators to measure the sustainability of development process of each country and region wise also. Then international agencies like United Nations, but it has raised the levels of inequality between the rich and the poor. Like for example, some, for some nation it would be a, that it would be a minimal support, and some nation it may be a luxury. It used to vary from one place to another place. So that's what they are saying, that it raised the levels of rich and the poor, and the disadvantaged and the poor increased in number all the over the world. And the agenda 21, the developed countries, they have said that 0.15% of the gross domestic product or GDP in the developing and the underdevelopment. If you look into the equality dimension, it leads to the social dimension of the diversity, because the disadvantaged society belong to diverse group of population. Okay, they are not particular. They have to determine the solution to reduce the imbalance between the diverse group to help the vulnerable. For India, if you look into that, there are, that many social advantage program has been suggested to bridge the gap between the socially vulnerable people. And another one is that social cohesion. So social cohesion, what do you mean by social cohesion? Is a society. Okay, it is a society. It means that the society works towards the working of the well-being of the people. Well-being can be achieved through easy access of people to the public institution to avail benefits, so that they can also contribute to the society. For example, if people, that if people get registered and the employment exchange of the government, they can avail the employment opportunity. But some of the important issues are need attention, and that attention to social cohesion, even it is in the any age group, like the, for example, the sense of belonging of a group in the broader community, the level of participation of the group in the communities, social activities, the understanding and access to public and civil society, and the contribution to the group to the society. These are all comes under the social cohesion. When it comes to diverse democracy and governance, normally social sustainability can be better achieved in a nation that follows democratic governance. These programs made by the government require appropriate budgets and resources, which can easily possible in a democratic society. In that, when Amartya Sen has categorical about individual having needs, but the fact that they have ignored, they also have values. Generation that were mentioned in the definition of sustainable development cannot be considered as a homogeneous taste or the preferences. Like for example, if you take social issues, it cannot be separated from the economic and the environmental concerns. So economic issues and social issues also interrelated, or if you coming together, social and economic and environmental also, that they used to be a one or the other things related to each other. So these are the social components of the sustainable development. Now we are moving into the economic components of sustainable development. Development become a major concerns of the developed nations after the second half of the 20th century, when most of the most of the nation got a freedom from the imperial forces like UK, Japan, Spain, and the Germany. So economic development was a popular policy that time. That economic policy agenda across the world on offshoot development economics emerged as it's a new discipline. Mostly, if you look into that time, that economic development look into the social, economic, and political issues encountered in the developing countries. So globally, most of the countries like GDP and the Human Development Index used to measure the that development. However, there had been a negative effect in the African countries, because the problems are the rising of income inequalities and the negative impact of development or environment and the existing social structures. So development has development has come out in a very high cost wise when it comes to the environmental degradation, displaced people, loss of cultural and traditional heritage, the high of environmental and social costs. So these are the negated the environmental issues. When it comes to environmental component, there are three components are there, that is the exponential era and role of industries and economic sustainability. Now, exponential era, climate change is the only environmental concern of the 21st century. So, the next 30 to 40 years would have to face worsen problem to the massive and exponential increase in the population across the world, water, food shortages, and poverty would lead to crisis of world, that the world's ecosystem, species, and state of the oceans. So, the 21st century is a rapid changes, especially in the financial sector, and also there was a slightest changes has also happened, and there is a frequent fluctuations in oil prices and the economics and the turbulence. So this is happen a imminent effect on the society. Like, okay, if you have any economic issues happen, it also affect the society, that is a social component. The statistics of poor people who cannot afford that one square meal the a day, they have to, they are in a pathetic condition only. So the shocking and growing inequality between the rich and the poor is worsening the in the poverty alleviation also. And also poverty affects the social economic components equally, because the poor cannot find sustainable livelihoods. When it comes to role of industry, there was lot of private industries in the capacity in the area of technology and know-how, finance, and politics. They can be achieving in the sustainable development. They have a ability to deploy human resources, and they can think about the sustainable solutions in the production of goods, services also. And another one is the environmental sustainability. What do you mean by environmental sustainability? Economically sustainable system must be able to produce goods and services on a continuing basis, maintain a manageable level of government and the external debt, and to avoid external, that is sectoral imbalances, which that it damage agriculture and industrial productions. Broadly, if you speak, okay, sustainability can be defined, that as the maximization of welfare over time from the economic perspective. So this definition simplifies the concept of economic sustainability to a measurable single dimensional indicator, although it has many complexities and in a view also. When it comes to economic sustainability, we can divide into three factors, that is renewable resources, economic theory and policy, and circular economy. The renewable, that renewable resources consumption can be limited to sustain as per the level. it proceeds the non-renewable resource exploitation, and it has to be reinvested and renewable capital also. This would help in that maintain a continued reserve of a natural capital and all. So another point of view is that trade of economic development. When it comes to economic theory and policy, government must consider three casualties, that is the most most three essentials, that is the moral imperatives, public decision making, and the formation of the social values and all. So in economic theory, mostly that market and pricing, it used to hold an important position, but the end goal they have planned in a social decision making process. So the present market are seeking a surge in sustainable and circular economy. When it comes to circular economy, mostly that waste and pollution do not exist by design, products and the materials. Natural materials are used in the production goods which are regenerated by the natural system. So it uses the green financing, which means that the government use that innovation, restructure critical sectors, accelerate existing environmental plans also. The circular economy and sustainability differ in the fact that the circular economy focuses on the environmental performance and the improvements, rather than talking about the holistic view of three components, that is the socio-economic and the environment. There are more than 100 definitions of circular economies are there. Then we can say that there are three R's are there in the circular economy, that is the reduce, reuse and recycle. So this refers to the reducing the plastic and the non-biodegradable substances and reusing products and recycling also. There are various examples like 3 R's are there, that dropping your clothes into the designated places so that they can be recycled by the washing and shredding process. So the same is with the mobile phones, like e-waste management and everything. So these are the considered under circular economy. And when it comes to that environmental component of sustainable development, it is one of the more major one, that sustainable development is the environment which is being that damaged due to the adverse effects of socio-economic growth and social inequality. Mostly that damage, or you can say the effect of the environment or the problem of environment, mostly it used to happen due to the effects of the economic growth and the social inequality. So these three components, that social, economic and environmental components, overlap with each other, and they used to be very closely interrelated with each other. They, like for example, cheap fossil fuel, that is coal, petroleum, natural, they are undoubtedly that there is no other way. They used to bring the economic growth at the highest speed, but the result, the damaged environment producing by the greenhouse gases. And also for that in the Jogurnau's plan of implementation for sustainable development, they have suggested some kind of principle. They suggested that use sustainable use of biomass and energy, and they said that changing the unsustainable patterns of consumption and production, move towards cleaner production, new eco-efficiency, inclusion of private companies and authorities. Focal area must be that include transport, waste and the chemicals. And another thing what they are saying, that protecting and managing the natural resource base and improvement of health infrastructure to deal with the adverse effect of the environmental damage. Small island developing state must assist to the technology and regional efforts and Latin America and means of implementation and institutional upgradation. So these are the things that these are the things has been suggested by the that Johannesburg conference. And when it comes to, like for example, how do you integrate the these goals through the sustainable development goals? Like for example, when you want to integrate socio-economic and environmental goals, you should focus upon the fundamental policy. Okay, you should focus upon the fundamental policy, and you should focus upon the long term benefits, and you should think about the replacement of GDP, and you should focus upon the limited resources. Okay, because these types of policy shift Will address the issues in public decision making regarding the implementation of policies. If these shifts in policies are taken into account, then the negative externalities in form of pollution, emissions, waste, and social echoes are manifest themselves also. So, and also we can see that input output analysis have been used to the quantitative analytic from to integrating the socio-economic and the environmental dimension of the investment and all. So towards the end, the conclusion, like as I mentioned, that sustainable development is achieved by the integration of the economic, social, and environmental. Neglecting one dimension or otherwise, if you focus upon the another dimension, that won't be a solution. Only solution to that is that you have to be focus upon the holistic approaches so that it balance the economic prosperity, social equality, and the environmental stewardship also. So thank you for listening. Thanks a lot.